Obviously, there continues to be this fascination with what's happening with user growth. Is that fair? Is that the number that we should be focusing on?
I think it's fair. I think it frustrates Twitter. I mean, it's fairly clear from the call. All you have to do is, ask a question about, daily active users or, the relationship between daily active users and timeline growth or any of those. And all of a sudden, there's this kind of sense of, oh my God, I've heard this question too many times. The company's clearly frustrated with the investor fixation with those numbers and wants to tell a different story, but it's the only number the market currently understands, and it's the one they want to value, and they're not getting the kinds of numbers they'd like. Corey,
what do you think?
Well, I think that, at this stage, this is a young company. As a company should be growing its addressable audience right now. And we criticize a lot of companies in Silicon Valley that go out and get a big user base before it gets revenues. The Snapchat model, right? Which was once the Google model, which was get big, we'll figure out how to make money later. Now, these guys are trying to do both at the same time, but the get big thing is a problem. 284 million users is a lot. But the growth rate is slower than it's been. The growth rate, after the IPO and into the IPO, the growth rate was coming down and coming down and coming down to 3.8% in the December quarter, but then it picked up to 5.9%. It picked up a little more to 6.3%. So you wanted to see that rebound continue. I feel like a weatherman right now, but it did not. In fact, we had a cold front, 4.8% growth, and that's a disappointment for this business at such a young stage. Now, that's a quarter-over-quarter growth. The number that you cited when you were reading before of 24% or whatever it is year over year, I don't think that's the right number. I really think it's appropriate here to say, how big is the audience that you had 12 weeks ago, 13 weeks ago at the end of the last quarter, and has it gotten any larger? They didn't really grow that much, and that's a concern.
Paul, how big a concern is it? And is Twitter, should we consider Twitter a seasonal company when you have big events like the Oscars or the World Cup or one amazing retweet by Ellen DeGeneres?
Right. No, I don't think we should think about it as a seasonal or event company. And I think, I think the company would discourage you. I would certainly discourage investors from thinking that way about the company. It should and deserves to be thought of in a much broader term than that. But as Corey points out, the numbers that we're seeing suggest that even if you do think of it in those terms, they're not seeing huge bumps from any individual event, whether it's, NFL football or the World Cup to a lesser degree this summer or the Brazilian elections or anything else. And analysts fished for that during the conference call, trying to find something that either justified, the numbers growing more or less than it should have. So no, we're not really seeing that. So I think the fundamental problem remains, and this has been the story for Twitter for 2 years now, since pre-going public, was the experience when you join the service as a new user isn't sort of self-documenting. It's not really obvious what you're supposed to do. And as a non-logged-in user, which was a big topic of the conversation on the conference call, there's really no experience for you at all. And these two things are really rate limiting.
What does Twitter do about the mom problem? So, for example, my mom uses Facebook, and she's quite tech-savvy, but she still doesn't understand Twitter.
I know. Your mom follows me on Facebook, and I follow your mom, too. I think that, we talk about mom from a sort of hip... Isn't it sweet, Paul? We talk about the mom issue, right? The Facebook issue. But Facebook loves the mom. Facebook loves the fact that they've got somebody... Facebook's business has never been better than we expect we're going to find out tomorrow when they report earnings.
Twitter needs to love the mom, too.
Twitter needs...
Especially my mom.
Everyone should love your mom, Emily, as we all do. I think Twitter needs a bigger audience. It needs the moms, it needs the dads, it needs the kids, it needs the cousins, it needs the dogs, it needs the goldfish. It's not getting those. Now, there are some numbers that didn't stink here. The revenue per timeline view, which the monetization of those timeline views, that picked up, but those numbers are so small. They quote them in per 1,000 views, $1.77. That's a very low number. Now, it's better than it was, but the problem there was that the timeline view growth, that is the number of timelines that people were looking at, was also coming in quite small at 4.3% sequentially. So slow growth on users, slow growth on the timelines that were viewed. In the United States in particular, you saw very slow growth. So in their most mature market, you saw that users weren't using the site a lot more. I was talking to Matt Miller about it earlier, and Matt Miller, our colleague, said, I'm on it all day at work. I'm on it all day at home. Corey's on it right now while he's broadcasting, tweeting out. How much more can you be on it? That's a problem for this business as well.
I'm on it as well. Paul, Twitter has been making product tweets. They've rejiggered the sign-in process. They've made things like pictures larger. How much can Twitter actually do when it comes to a product perspective to re-accelerate user growth? Or to a certain extent, is that out of their control? Sometimes these things just happen organically or they don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean, I think there is a lot they can do, and in some sense, the product really hasn't evolved much over the last couple of years, with some exceptions at the margin. And that's in part because of, there was this uneasy tension between the company and developers on the platform. And, one of the more welcome signs in the quarter that really didn't get a lot of conversation, in these results, because it's still too early, is Twitter's sort of re-embrace of the developer community. And I think that's where you're going to see, if anywhere, an awful lot of the changes the company needs in terms of new products that really begin to drive things. Because, they're the people who are going to develop on top of the platform and do the sort of the new crazy and interesting things that attract users, I think more so than Twitter is. Because if Twitter could, they would have done it already, and they haven't.
What kind of product tweaks should Twitter make? And should it be to the mainstream product? Should it be about partnerships with other companies like SoundCloud, for example?
Oh, I think it should be all of those things, and I think it should also, quite honestly, and I'm sorry to say this, but I think they should look at some companies that need to become rapidly obsolete. Like, why does Hootsuite exist? Why does Buffer exist? Why do all of these companies exist who are sort of at the margins but doing things that people expect should be happening inside of the core Twitter product? So there's a whole sort of ecosystem that needs to kind of change.